the recording. Okay.
Okay. All right. Now I just want to thank you for being here. Just to, as a, going back, I'm gonna go back to the Spradlin Elementary days where we grew up in Arkansas.
Yeah.
Hold on, look. Can I say West Apartments?
Girl, she done took it all the way back. Wow.
Went back to West Apartment where we grew up across from the fairgrounds. But listen, you and I both, we've been through things in life, but here we know that how important mental health is. Is so important to you that you became a professional. So I'm gonna go ahead and lay it out. You're a speaker, a therapist, you're an EMDR trainer, a CIDP instructor, and you're certified in Centray, ACEs, PSED, complex trauma, anxiety, depression, addiction, DV, eating disorders, grief, kids, teens. I mean, honestly, the list goes on for you, but you are just a true blessing. Just always remember you growing up in Girls Club camp. You were always like just doing something different. And listen, it hasn't changed as you've been an adult, so I'm not going to take too much time. I just want to really just shout you out, and you take the time and really volunteering your time and giving us some stress management tools. And so I will let you take it away, Jessica Crunkleton.
Yeah. All right. I'm glad to be here. So I'm going to, I got a presentation. Let me see. I hope this works. Let me share screen. Cross my fingers that it's going to work. Okay. Can you guys see that? Can you guys see my presentation?
I can see it.
Okay. All right. Let me. All right, there we go. All right, cool. So what I'm going to be talking about is obviously it's tea time, so we're going to get into it. So I'm going to be talking about I Will Survive. It's just a wellness guide for teachers during uncertain times. So that's going to be what we're going to be chatting about today. And obviously I'm Jessica Crunkleton. I'm not an EAP therapist anymore, but I used to be. So I'll talk a little bit about that too. Let's see here. All right, so Hannah's already introduced me. So I'm a marriage and family therapist, mental health counselor, a whole bunch of stuff. I'm currently licensed in Indiana, Illinois, and Missouri. Maybe at some point soon I will be licensed in Georgia. We'll see what happens. We'll see what God leads me. So I specialize again in just trauma-informed therapy. Yeah, that would be cool, huh? I specialize in just trauma-informed therapy for kids, teens, adults, families, couples and groups, a whole bunch of different stuff. This was my office pre-pandemic. I miss it so much, but I will be opening up another practice. I do have a practice, but it's virtual right now due to the pandemic, but I will be opening up an in-office practice here in the St. Louis area very soon. And then just for us to stay connected, please follow me on LinkedIn. I think I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok. So follow me on those. I think I'm called Trauma Queen 1913 because I'm a Delta. So I got to give a shout out to the Delta. So that's on there. So yeah, but LinkedIn, I post a ton of stuff. I got a lot of followers on there. So I'm always posting mental health topics. So just follow me on there. All right. So I just, again, want to say thank you to the teachers for all the hard work that you do and to Hannah for inviting me to speak today. I love speaking to groups. And so glad to be able to do this. So the objectives, basically what we're going to be talking about is self-care. Just how do you take care of yourself? I know we still are technically in a pandemic, a lot of things, a lot of uncertainty going on. So how do you take care of yourself, right? To keep yourself healthy, to do the work that you have to do. And so the biggest thing I will say is you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So you got to take care of yourself first. For me, now I'm just a therapist in private practice, but used to, I was an EAP therapist. And so this is usually at the point where I would meet a lot of teachers, doctors, lawyers, a lot of different types. And I still do that somewhat. But when I worked in a hospital system, I saw even more. And so I would meet individuals who had just ran out of gas. They were taking care of too many people, not enough for themselves. And so this is something I always say, just make sure that you take care of yourself. Use your EAP, use your time off, use your insurance, just take care of yourself because they can find somebody else to do the job, but we can't replace you, okay? So one of the handouts I often will give clients, especially for EAP, I started noticing this connection when I was working in the hospital system between um, mental health and stress. So there's like this connection between the health issues that they were coming in with and their mental health state. And so I would start getting into, when did you start having this pain, or when did your head start hurting? It will be right around the time someone passed away or some big change happened in their life, but they didn't notice that combination. So I will often, and all the handouts things, I'll make sure I get it to you guys. I'll make sure that Hannah gets it for you guys, because I think these slides are really important, and just to have information like this to later on for you guys to check out. So I'll make sure we do that. So we're going to be talking about wellness. That's part of it. So what is wellness? Wellness is an active process of being aware and making choices towards a healthy and fulfilling life. Wellness is more than being free from illness. It's a dynamic process of change and growth. And so in that sense, this is an active thing that you're doing. So it's an active process. You're a part of it. It's not like you kind of just step back, but it's things that you're doing to make sure you keep yourself healthy as best you can and to make choices towards health. And I think this is really important. So obviously with the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been a lot of losses, and we've been in this thing 2 years now. So lots of people are dealing with death, losses of jobs, losses of connections with people, and trying to reach out and reconnect and different things, missed opportunities, right, due to the pandemic. I know me and my family had a cruise schedule. We couldn't go because of the pandemic, and it just has affected a lot of people in different ways. So one result of that is grief. And that's something that we don't always, we think about as a loss of a person, but grief can be the loss of anything, right? A divorce, a loss of a job, a missed opportunity, all kinds of things that we thought were going to happen and they didn't happen. So people are at different steps, at different points in the grief cycle, and we can kind of vacillate. We can kind of go through different points. So just keep that in mind, that grief is not just the loss of a loved one. Be loss of a pet, that's a loved one still, but it can be the loss of jobs, the things that you thought were going to happen and they didn't. It could be you being sick, and maybe you have, you're recovering from long-term COVID, and the things you used to do, you just can't do anymore. That's still grief. And those are things that we need to recognize and just pay attention to. So empathy is really big, I think, for when I think back to about as far as how I became a therapist. Part of what led me into that is I had a very difficult childhood. My ACE score is almost a 10. So there's a lot of trauma, things that I grew up, and a lot of things people still at Hannah probably don't even know, because I've never really told anybody. But there was a lot of things that I experienced. But one of the reasons I was able to get through such a difficult environment and to make it to the point that I am now is because of teachers. I had some amazing teachers that would just pray with me, that connected with me, that encouraged me. And I've talked to a lot of individuals, and they have similar stories of maybe they had a difficult home life, but it was the teachers that got them things that they needed, that helped them along the way, that provided them with encouragement. But empathy, and just supporting people, this can take a lot out of us. So again, that's why I say you have to take care of yourself so that you can do this for other people, right? So what can companies do to support employees during this crisis? So again, just from a company level, I think it's going to be really important for employees just to feel protected, that there's trust there, that if there are issues, a lot of time with the AP, where the reason I was called in, I would be called in to settle disputes within companies. There was resentments that would build, and this could be going on for years. And by the time I come in, it's so much that's going on, right? There's a lot of breakdown in trust. New management is coming in. People aren't being informed about different things. They feel like they don't have a voice. And that can really cause a breakdown in many different ways. So we really want to have safety and trust within the company, and that employees feel supported, and make sure that the expectations of employees are realistic and doable. One of the things I notice a lot of times too is that employees feel like, we've got too many responsibility. I got too many things I'm trying to do. I can't keep up with all that, especially during the pandemic. You might be short-staffed. And so again, making sure that things are realistic and doable, and make sure that systems of support are available to employees. I know that was one of the things we did in EAP, making sure that all of our contracts, that they knew about EAP. Yes, you have your insurance, you can use that, but you also have EAP, which can be a part of that as well. And we can usually get you in quicker than maybe if you're trying to use just your insurance to go out and find somebody. So use those sessions. is there for you. So use it, take advantage of it. So the other thing I would think about teachers is you guys are out there, and again, therapists or wherever environment you work in, you are dealing with individuals, with children and youth and such who may have ACEs, so adverse childhood experiences, which is something that I specialize in. And so when they come to school, they're having a hard time being still in the environment, or they're arguing with others. And a lot of times you may be able to tell it's like they're being triggered or something. And it could be the stuff that's going on at home. It's just transitioning into the classroom. But teachers, you have to maintain a classroom where you can teach and all these things. So one of the things I would recommend is if you get a chance to read this book, it's called The Deepest Well, Healing Long-Term Effects of Childhood Adversity. And the lady that wrote it, she's Jamaican, she's awesome. I think she was a pediatrician. Now she's a Surgeon General of California. She is amazing, and she talks about ACEs. And this just isn't something for people of color that have it. It shows up, and I've worked with people high SCS, low SCS. It doesn't matter where you fall along that continuum, you can be impacted by ACEs. But specifically for those working in classroom setting, you guys are going to be dealing with this on a daily basis. So I think it's really important to have an understanding of ACEs. All right, so let's talk about trauma informed. So one of the other things, let me see, I think there is, yes, The Deepest Well. Thanks, Hannah. The 10 ingredients for trauma informed care. So one of the reasons, so I wanted to include this because I myself, as a therapist early in my career, I went through 2 serious episodes of burnout. And I remember thinking the first time it happened, and it was almost like I couldn't even get myself up to go to work. I was trying to launch my private practice the first time, and it was bad. I remember thinking, I've heard of people's having writer's block, but I always thought that was funny. How can you not write no more? But when it happened to me and I didn't want to practice, I didn't want to get up, and it was really severe. And part of what caused that was because I was being asked to do a lot of things where I used to work at. I was being asked to take on a lot of responsibilities that I shouldn't have. I probably should have said no a lot more. Just being overloaded, the types of cases I was dealing with were quite severe. So there was a combination of things. Then I had a little spurt of burnout a bit later, right? So there were things, but when I look back on it, one of the things I learned from that experience was to practice in a more trauma-informed way. So the way that I engage with my clients, and again, this is not just for if you work in a therapy environment. You will see a lot more info for teachers, educators, for all different professions about trauma-informed care. So training all your staff. So the way we talk about our students and how we approach them. I used to do home-based therapy for DCS, and a lot of times they would talk about these clients, they're just resisting, they don't want to get help. And I would go to the schools, and the teacher, they would just be so frustrated with these students. But I had the background, so I knew when those kids got home, they didn't have no food or they didn't have clothes, so they wasn't stealing, they was just trying to maintain, but the kids don't always open up about that. But just understanding what trauma is, and if you identify students, get them the support they need. If you need support, if something happens in the school environment, please get yourself some support and take care of yourself, just to prevent secondary trauma, because you can get traumatized by the work that you do, especially as caregivers. We are really at high risk of being traumatized, that secondary trauma from the work, the vicarious trauma from the work that we do. Okay, so then I would just say also connecting, knowing who is in your area as far as providing support for the students and getting them linked up with support services, but also for yourself, that EAP, do you know the number, making that available for people front and center so that they can get the support that they need. All right, so the other thing I like to do, and this is a really cool thing, so the anger iceberg. So we talk a lot about anger, and I think of it as a secondary emotion. So if you ever heard the phrase, the tip of the iceberg, I use this a lot with couples and families and different groups, and that people have found this to be really helpful. And so oftentimes the behavior that you might see in the classroom is that they're very angry and they want to fight. They're acting out towards you or other people, but underneath that, they might be experiencing embarrassment, feeling overwhelmed, feeling exhausted. Again, these things, the ACEs, the things that are going on outside of the school environment, the kids bring that to school. And also you guys as educators, you bring whatever's happened, you bring that to the schoolhouse too. So again, you might experience some of this. I know for me, disrespect is huge. I'm a mother, I have 5 kids, and as a therapist, one of my big things is feeling disrespected, and that can trigger me. So it's something I've had to work on and being aware of, and also recognizing that it may not be that they're trying to be disrespectful. It could be the ACEs, it could be other things. So just being aware of this, I think, can be really helpful, and knowing what your triggers are. So I want to talk to you about it from a family perspective. What can you do during the pandemic to help out? So following the social distancing guidelines, spending time with your family, right? Also checking in with your kids about how they're doing, maintaining a routine, creating different rituals, checking in with each other, connecting, finding other ways to help. And if you see problems, seek professional help. A lot of times what can happen is we wait so long. So by the time we get into therapy, things can be really going downhill. So don't wait. If you see problems, don't wait. Start seeking, seek professional help right away, because it might take a while to get in. So this one is cool because it talks about teenagers and think about how the pandemic has affected them. So you might see them cussing or being defiant or on their phones a lot, complaining, all this kind of stuff. But think about underneath that. There could be helplessness, that disconnection, emotional dysregulation. There could be all these things going on with them. So paying attention to these things and recognizing that the behavior, usually, every behavior is an attempt to meet an unmet need. It's a quest to meet an unmet need. So there might be some unmet needs under the surface that could be going on. Okay. So on an individual level, what can you do? So again, with the pandemic, we got a lot of things going on. You could get mad easily. You could grab all the toilet paper and all the food and medicine, even if you don't need it, out of fear. But the goal would be to transition to that learning zone, become more aware of situations and think about how you're acting, to really evaluate the information before you share it, because something may be false, and to really strive towards that growth zone where you're living in the present, focusing on the future. You're thinking about others and how can you help them, making your talents available. That's what I'm doing right now. Okay. And helping to try to keep in a happy state and just spread hope. And it's challenging to do this, but it's something that we kind of want to strive for. All right. So just think about how you can move towards that growth zone. The other thing is, this is big, is just recognizing what you can and can't control. There are going to be some things you can control, and then there's going to be some things that you can't. So you can wash your hands. You can make decisions about, what you want to do and how you speak to others. The things that you can't control, how others feel, what others are doing, how long the pandemic lasted, how, it used to get me really frustrated when I go in a store and there's no toilet paper or meat. But since that time, I've really scaled back that and recognizing that's not something within my control. And I'll teach you a little trick here in a bit as far as how I deal with that too. Because we still got to deal with, because it still may bug us, right? So again, this is another slide I'm going to give you guys. I give this out a lot when I'm working with clients. The self-care wheel is going to be really important to kind of help you all. Just thinking about where you're at. So you might be doing really well in the spiritual area or personal level or professional, but maybe need to beef up on the physical or the psychological, whatever. So this will be a way to help you kind of evaluate where you're at and what you might need to work on, areas you might want to work on improving. Okay. So there's some good stuff on there to this is a good way to evaluate where am I at, what I need to work on. So when I went through the whole, the burnout, the 2 things of burnout, one of the things I really got in tune with, so I specialize in what's called EMDR therapy. It's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy, and it's excellent. I really like it. They say EMDR, so 20 minutes of EMDR is equal to about 5 hours of talk therapy. So it's faster and it works for not just PTSD, but anxiety, depression, and a whole bunch of stuff. But one of the biggest things I got about my training in EMDR, when I was in grad school, they used to tell us all the time, you're working with clients, you're working with patients, you need to learn how to compartmentalize. They taught us that a lot, but they told us that, but they never taught us how to compartmentalize. So when I would be out in the field working, trying to support people in the different, I might be at the school, I might be in somebody's home. I mean, I used to work in Gary, Indiana. And if anybody knows anything about Gary, Indiana, it's a lot going on in that area. And so lots of cases in the court system, the stuff you read about on TV, the stuff that was on TV, I had a lot of those cases. And I remember one in particular, I went and I visited with the family, and I remember coming home in my car and my heart was hurting. And I knew right then I was in trouble because that never happened before. But I didn't know what to do about it, right? And so one of the things I learned through my training as the EMDR therapist, and I teach clients this as well, is a container. And this is just a way to take care of ourselves. So right now I'm talking to you guys, and I've done work with my clients today and the people I do consultation with. And so when I'm done, the stuff stays in my basement, it stays in my laptop. It can't go upstairs to my family. And I'm very clear about that. So one of the ways I'll do that in my office, when I had my office for private practice, and now in my basement, one of the things I do is this thing called 6 candles. So I have candles strategically placed all around, and I'll turn them on at the beginning of the day. And that's kind of me in therapist mode or whatever I'm doing, speaker mode. And then at the end of the day, I turn those candles off and I close my laptop, and then I go upstairs, and that's it. And that means I'm off. So used to, I'd be driving home from work. Clients are in the backseat of my car. I'm going home, waking up at 2 a.m. Clients sitting on the side of my bed, smoking crack. I'm thinking about them and like, oh my gosh, how can I help them? How can I fix this problem? And one of my supervisors, he said, Jessica, have you smoked any crack? I said, no. He's like, did you have any drinks? I said, no, but I'm worried about my clients. And he said, you know, a lot of times we might not have them in the right level of care, but also we have to know where we end and they begin. Right? So there has to be boundaries. So this is one of the ways that I set those boundaries and saying, so I've taken off the cape. I'm not trying to save everybody. I give what I can, but that's it. And I really separate out, you know, what I can do and what I can't do. So I say no when I need to say no, knowing that I'm not going to be the one. I can't do it for everybody. Somebody else can take it on. It's not just because I'm African-American, I specialize in families, that you got to give me all those cases. Somebody else can do it as well, right? And if I'm sick, you're going to have to find somebody else to do it anyway. There's a limit to what we can do. And so you need to be very clear about that and take care of yourself and say no when you need to say no. The other thing I would say is just our breathing. So watch how you breathe. Pay attention, just taking several slow, deep breaths to kind of help reset your system. Maybe even do that now. Just take a couple deep breaths, slow, deep breaths, kind of inhale and exhale, kind of breathe, and that'll help reset your system. And also if you're talking to your students and you notice them kind of getting upset, this is something you can do with them to kind of have them stop, take some slow, deep breaths, and that kind of resets the system and helps them to kind of be thinking in a more clearer way versus when they're all worked up and they're just amped up. It's not going to go as well, right? So helping you stay in your window of tolerance as well as those that you support, them staying in their window of tolerance. And this is something I've seen even with people. I've had people call me and they're all worked up, and I'll say, hold on a second, because I'm starting to get anxious just even on the phone. Let's take a minute. Let's pause let's take a couple deep breaths, and I'll notice them calm, and then I'm calm, and then they'll join you in your calm eventually if you kind of stay in that space. The other one is the serenity prayer. God, grant me the things I can accept, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So you need to know what you can do and what you can't do, because there's going to be some limits to what you can do and what you can't do. So you need to be aware of that and be clear about that limit. It's only so much you can do. I used to want to take all the kids home that I worked with, but I can't do that. I've got 5 kids of my own. It's a limit to what I can do. I can't take them home. Mindfulness, and this is just an active process of just being open and paying attention to things, just an awareness of it. So it's a difference. I'm observing it, I'm aware of it, but I'm not absorbing it. I'm not taking this all in, things that are happening around me. I'm just noticing it, but I'm not engaging with it. So I'm just aware of myself, my feelings, my emotions. I had somebody to say something to me recently, and I felt like they were kind of trying to throw shade a little bit. But I remember if it would have been the old me, I would have immediately responded because I would have been hurt and I got to say something back. But now I'm kind of like, okay, I noticed what they're saying. That ain't about me. So I'm not even going to engage with it. So I'm aware of it, but I'm not engaging with it. The other thing, when I'm working with people or anybody, I don't argue with anybody. I don't care who you are. When you argue with people, it gets into power and control, and I'm not doing that, especially not with kids. I don't argue with kids, my own kids or anybody else's. I just don't. That's not something I'm going to do. And I encourage parents and others not to argue with them because it puts them in a position of power, and I'm not doing that. I'm not going to play that game. Having a gratitude journal, like every morning or every night before you go to bed, kind of write down 5 things that you're grateful for. This is another practice. Again, just those mindfulness things. So there are all kinds of things that you can do, but basically these are just ways that you can take care of yourself and to just be thankful. And so what we know is those who, and I've seen this in therapy, the people that come in and everything is bad and terrible, right? They can't find no gratitude, nothing. They tend to, it takes longer to kind of support them versus people who may be having issues, but they can see, you know, hopefully some light at the end of the tunnel. They got some supports. They tend to do better. So both of them could be diagnosed with breast cancer, but one sees a way out and wants to get support. And the other one, this is over with. I'm going downhill. This is all bad. They might not fare as well just based on how they're handling the situation and their views on the situation. And I say this from thousands and thousands of hours of just sitting there talking with people. The other thing is, don't forget to laugh. This is a little funny video. I'm not going to play it, but it's a cockatoo and it's funny, kind of dancing to Elvis. But find places to find humor, find the joy in life, I guess is what I'm saying. It's really important to do that because it's difficult right now, but you got to take care of yourself. It's not going to be forever. Keep that in mind. And these are just some resources for you. Again, I'm going to make sure Hannah gets these things to everybody so that way you'll have it. And again, that's just some information about me. So if you want to connect, my email address, again, also, I'll make sure Hannah gets all that as well. But again, you can follow me on LinkedIn. I post stuff a lot. Okay. All right. And so that's all I have as far as that goes. So I'm going to open it up for Hannah if there's any questions or anything. Go ahead, Hannah.
Well, I just want to first say thank you for all those resources.
Yeah.
It was so much information. I know I'm still chewing on a lot of things, so I know I'm gonna have to go back and look at this.
Yeah.
And I'm really interested in getting the book, The Deepest Well by Nadine Burke Harris, doctor. So I definitely appreciate these resources. And of course, y'all, if you have any thing you would like to share or ask, we want to value everyone's time, and we definitely want to value Jessica's time. Just if you have anything to share, you're welcome.
Yeah, does anyone have any questions or anything for me, anything that they would like to ask or know more about? Any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I do just want to say thank you for the presentation. It's a lot of good and valuable information because, you know, a lot of times when we think about our health, we think about the physical aspect.
Yeah.
Physically hurting, not realizing that there's a connection between the physical and the mental health. So I just think that it's very important to make people aware of mental health. And I just wanted to say that I enjoyed the presentation.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. And again, I knew there was a connection, but it wasn't until, like I said, I went through my own episode of burnout. And then I'm seeing like, whoa, I got to step back. I'm a mental health therapist and I'm getting burnt out over here. And yeah, it was hard to get myself up in the morning. That was a win, you know, and I'm like, how did I get here? And so that actually is kind of what fueled me to really get in deeper in this and to have a better understanding. Like I said, doing EAP in the hospital setting, there would be times where I had to send people to get hospitalized. You know, they would come to my office and they wouldn't be safe to leave. And this, I'm talking about like people like you, teachers, doctors, nurses, other therapists. And I would have to send them for acute care. Like, we got to take you. You're not safe to go by yourself. And a lot of it was because they were doing so much for other people and not taking care of themselves. So that's self-care wheel. So you got to take care of yourself because without mental health, like I said, there is no health. And again, in the EAP environment, I just started seeing that connection between a lot of people having headaches and things like that. And I'll tell them stress can kill you. Think about your heart. All your systems can be impacted by stress. So we talk about physical health, But that emotional health, if you have issues that you got going on and you're not dealing with them, your body will find a way to make itself be heard. In my body, same thing. It was sending me signals. You need to stop. You need to slow down. And I was ignoring it, and it'll get worse and worse, and it can get real bad. So please take care of yourself. When you hear those signals, when you start seeing some signals, take time out, take care of yourself, rearrange your schedule, do what you need to do. Because I always tell people, you know, it's like that analogy of the plane. I love to use this one. So if you've ever flown before, you know, that when they're about to, before they take off, the flight attendants will go through the scenarios of how we use the oxygen mask and all that. And they'll say, if you got a baby with you, make sure you give the oxygen to yourself first. And people are like, what? No, I got a baby. I want to save my baby, right? But the thing is, if you give oxygen to the baby, you and the baby gonna die. Y'all probably both gonna die. But if you give yourself oxygen first, then you can give it to the baby. Then you give it to yourself. That way you save both of you. But if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't be there for your family, for yourself. You can't be there for your community, for your students, if you don't take care of yourself. And that's something also I learned. I like to follow Oprah. I used to watch the Oprah Winfrey Show. And that's one thing she talks about. People say, how can you do all these things? Part of the reason is she's real good about taking care of herself and setting those boundaries. So you have to be too, regardless of what you do. You got to take good care of yourself. And again, it's okay to say no. You don't have to be the one that says yes all the time. Set that boundary. That's really important. Any other questions or thoughts or anything?
Hi, y'all excuse my appearance. I'm at the pool chilling.
Oh, you fine.
But I did want to come on and thank you for definitely doing this. This is something that Hannah and I always talk about, and we kind of really connect when it comes to mental awareness. And, you know, because as a teacher at 25 years, I suffered with that mental illness, that stress, anxiety, and depression. And I just allowed myself to continue to, you know, and then once COVID came and I tried to go back 3 years straight, I had to just make a decision. You know, this is just not for me anymore. It was just taking me out, you know. And so the thing about, you know, we as teachers, we will overextend ourselves again and again and again, whether it be because we're in a situation where we can't get out and we want to get out, but we do also want to be professional, do our jobs. So it's always, it's a catch-22, you know. So like I said, I just had to, for my mental state, decide that this is just not for me anymore.
Absolutely.
Know? So I definitely appreciate you coming on and giving some words of wisdom for those who are going to continue, you know, being teachers or just being able to take care of themselves, their families first, you know. So, I appreciate you.
All right, thanks for sharing, April. Yeah, and again, I think that's really important. Sometimes you have to shift. I know for me, I had to shift out of doing those really heavy, complex trauma cases. I still do a little bit of that, but I've shifted and now I do more speaking and some other types of cases. So you have to know when to hold them and when to fold them, and maybe you need to shift into another age group or another type of work. And that's totally fine to do that. That's self-care, that's self-preservation. And again, if you are taking good care of yourself, that makes you, you're going to be more likely to get frustrated by things that are going on. So things that might have been going on with students where you could just, that's, you know, where you're going to be more frustrated by those things because you've got some of those challenges going on where you need to take better self-care. So using that again, and like I said, please y'all use your PTO. Use your pay time off, use EAP. That's a big one. Just reach out to EAP if you need them. And I've done that for myself, and I found it to be very helpful to have somebody to talk with, you know, outside the family, just to give me some support. And I've done that a lot with a lot of clients, just supporting them and kind of making decisions, what they need to do, how they need to rearrange some things. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't always have to be long-term therapy. You might just go a couple sessions, get some tips, get some tools, and then you're good to go from there. So, but sometimes you might want to go a little bit deeper with things, and that's fine too. We're there for that as well. All right, Hannah, any other questions or anything?
My only question is, how can I practice mindfulness on the go?
Yeah, so I think of this as this to me, and I therapists too, teachers, whoever I'm working with, I think this is, it's a daily thing. I use my container. This is something I do every day. is something I think you have to incorporate. So you have to be very intentional about this, about figuring out what you need to do, what changes you need to make. So I say maybe sit down and write down some things or work with a professional to kind of help you figuring out what changes do I need to make in my life to get more in alignment with myself, and what I'm feeling my health is off. When part of also what went through with mine is I started to fall asleep as soon as I got home. What happened is I had vitamin deficiencies, which I think were brought on by some of this stuff. So yeah, pay attention to that stuff. I think stress can induce a lot of those things. So if you're starting to have health problems that you wasn't having before, falling asleep or different things, or you get more irritable with your family, they're like, something is different here. Pay attention to that. So you want to pause and really do some reevaluation, looking at that self-care wheel, and word changes do you need to make? Do you need to take care? For me, it's every like Wednesday, I go to the movies. I have time off in the afternoon, and that's my time. And I go to a movie or I get a massage, and I don't talk. And I don't want nobody talking to me. Leave me alone, because I talk other time. So I'm very clear about setting that boundary. So I would say you need to go back and reevaluate where you're at in your life and what adjustments you need to make. And you need to be intentional about making those adjustments and knowing that some people may not be happy with it. That's okay. You got to think about yourself. You're not, a lot of times teachers, nurses, therapists, they have this idea, this belief about themselves that they're responsible for everything. And I would say that's maladaptive. That's going to run you into problems. What you need to work towards is getting to a recognition. I can recognize what I can and can't control. I can recognize appropriate responsibility, because there are just some things that ain't your responsibility, and you need to be recognizing that. But again, that also goes back, if you look at our lives and where we come from, a lot of us have been doing this for years before we ever became teachers or nurses or doctors or therapists or whatever. We, in our family system, we grew up with that. We just was always the one. But that don't make it right. That don't mean you have to continue that. So yes, you can be there for some people, and that's really good. But I always ask this question, who's going to be there for you? Who takes care of you? Oh, I don't need nobody. Who looking out for you? If you don't take care of you, who's going to do that? Who's going to do all these things? Things are going to fall apart. So that's what I would say. I'm very intentional about that process. I don't play about my mental health at this point, because I know what it can lead to. So that's what I would say. You have to guard it with your life, and that's not anybody else's responsibility. We would hope our supervisors and others would be there for us, and hopefully they will, but I'm not dependent upon them to do that. I'm going to do that for myself, because it falls on me. I'm an adult and I can do that. And I'll say no when I need to say no. So, yep. And if I can't, if they're not supporting that, then I'll move around. Yeah. So thank you for having me. Glad to be here. Is there anything else? Any other questions or anything? Is that it?
I think that is, I didn't see anybody trying to speak, but yes, that was again right on time. And again, thank you for being here and honoring mental health awareness. Thank you everyone for coming. I'm just really grateful, and I really feel that I will be looking over some of that self-care wheel.
Yeah, I'm telling you, check in to exercise, eating healthy, take good care of yourself, drink your water, stay hydrated, but really keeping yourself centered, because it can mess with your whole body and stuff. So you got to take care. That emotional health is really important. And again, I'm gonna make sure I email Hannah some of the resources I included, so you guys will have those and you can look back over, and then share it with your friends, share it with other people. You guys all need these things, especially right now. Because like I said, y'all dealing with ACEs. The kids now ain't the same kids they was years ago. Y'all dealing with kids with more trauma, and that shows up in the schools. So you're gonna have to be real careful about how you approach that and taking good care of yourself. Okay. All right. Well, thanks everyone.
Thank you so much, Jessica. You are wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. The team is one. April, we're the last of the party.
Yeah.
All right, y'all have a good.
Thanks. All right.
Yes,
Bye-bye.
indeed.
Everyone take care.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Miss you, Mrs. Stewart.